close your eyes and imagine the mind as a quiet stage where the lights are dimming for the night. Welcome everyone to the Sleepy Explainer. Tonight we're taking a slow journey into the strange silent world of dreams, the stories your brain tells itself while the body rests. We'll drift gently through the stages of sleep, step by step, learning why the mind creates such vivid pictures and feelings when you're far away from waking life. Think of this as a calm exploration, like walking slowly through a garden at night, where each turn reveals something new but never startling. By the time we finish, you'll not only understand more about why you dream, you may already be dreaming yourself. If you'd like, take a moment to leave a quiet comment with where and when you're listening, and then let's begin. As the day winds down and your eyelids grow heavier, the brain begins to shift its state in a way that feels subtle yet profound. Sleep does not simply flip on like a light switch. It eases in gradually, in small steps that almost go unnoticed. At first, you're still in waking mode, your thoughts drifting between memories of the day and plans for tomorrow. They may jump around without order, one thought pulling another, but with less sharpness than before. Slowly, the external world grows softer. The sounds around you feel more distant. The edges of the room blur, and your attention starts to turn inward. Inside your head, the pattern of electrical activity begins to slow. Scientists who record these patterns with delicate instruments see that the fast, irregular waves of wakefulness give way to slower, more rhythmic ones. These are known as alpha waves, gentle pulses that mark the beginning of the journey inward. Soon after, as you sink further, theta waves emerge, slower still, like the calm strokes of oars across a quiet lake. The muscles of the body respond too. They loosen, releasing the tension you carried through the day. Your jaw relaxes, your shoulders drop, and your breathing takes on a steady, almost musical rhythm. The heart begins to slow its pace, working in harmony with this new, quieter state. For many people, this transition is marked by a curious sensation, the sudden jerk of a leg or arm, as if the body is startled while falling. These movements, called hypnic jerks, are harmless, small signals that the nervous system is letting go of its grip. It is in these moments that you might feel as though you're slipping, or catching yourself mid-step in a dreamlike fall. It is only the body releasing its final threads of wakefulness. This stage of light sleep is fragile. A sound in the room, a shift of light, or a gentle touch can bring you back to awareness. And yet, even in its fragility, it is the gateway to the deeper stages that follow. If someone were to wake you now, you might not even be sure you were asleep at all. But within the brain, an important transformation has already begun. The cortex, the part of the brain that handles thought and awareness, is quieting down, while deeper structures take on a more active role. This is the beginning of non-REM sleep. Non-REM is the foundation on which the whole night rests. It is divided into several stages, each carrying you deeper into restoration. In the early part, the brain still hovers close to wakefulness, but as you progress, waves become slower and larger, like the swell of an ocean tide. In these deeper layers, known as slow-wave sleep, the brain's activity is synchronized, vast groups of neurons firing together in steady pulses. The body seizes this time to restore itself. Cells repair small damages, proteins are rebuilt, energy is stored for the next day. Growth hormone is released, encouraging healing and renewal. Even the immune system strengthens, preparing quietly to protect you from the outside world when morning comes. It is easy to think of this stage as nothing happening, because dreams are faint or absent. But in truth, this is when the most essential work of life is carried out in silence. Imagine a city at night, its streets empty, its shops closed. It might look still, yet deep in the background, Workers are repairing roads, cleaning buildings, and preparing everything for the next day. Non-REM sleep is much the same. The conscious mind is off duty, but the machinery of life continues its labour. As you drift through this quiet shift, time begins to lose its grip. Minutes may pass unnoticed, and before long you are carried further down into deeper states. This slow descent marks the start of a cycle that will repeat again and again through the night. It is the first path on a looping journey, one that prepares the brain for the vivid dreams that will later arrive in REM sleep. Without this quiet beginning, those later visions could not take shape. Every dream rests on the foundation laid here, in the stillness of non-REM. And though you rarely remember this passage, it is always the first step into the inner landscapes of the mind. As you drift further into the night, the structure of sleep begins to show itself, and rather than being one long descent into silence, it is a carefully shaped rhythm, a cycle that repeats again and again until morning light returns. This cycle is made up of two main states, non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Non-REM, which comes first, is the foundation of rest, the quiet, restorative part where the body heals and gathers strength. REM, short for rapid eye movement sleep, is the vivid, dream-filled part where the brain comes alive with strange stories and colourful scenes. Each cycle of non-REM and REM lasts around 90 minutes, and over the course of a night you move through 4 to 6 of these cycles. They repeat like waves on a shore, steady and dependable, carrying you deeper and then lifting you back toward lighter states, always flowing in balance. To understand this pattern more clearly, imagine the night as a spiral staircase, where each turn takes you down through layers of stillness before guiding you back up into the brightness of dreams. At the start of each cycle you enter stage 1, a fragile doorway between wakefulness and sleep. In this stage, brain activity begins to slow from the busy patterns of the day into softer rhythms called theta waves. You may feel as though you're half awake, drifting between thought and dream, and small jerks of your arms or legs may occur, sudden twitches as the body lets go. This light stage lasts only a few minutes before you sink further into stage 2. Here, consciousness fades even more. The brain produces bursts of activity called sleep spindles, small sparks that seem to protect you from waking too easily, and clusters of slow waves that mark the beginning of deeper rest. Your body temperature drops slightly, your muscles relax further, and your heart and breathing find a steady, calm rhythm. Stage 2 is where you spend much of the night, returning to it again and again with every cycle. After stage 2 comes stage 3, also called slow wave sleep. This is the deepest level of non-REM, the place of true restoration. Brain activity here is marked by delta waves, slow, high-amplitude pulses that rise and fall like gentle tides. In this stage, waking someone is difficult, and if they are stirred, they may feel groggy or disoriented, as if pulled up from underwater too suddenly. But in this deep state, the body works most intensely on repair. Growth hormone is released, muscles recover, tissues rebuild, and the immune system strengthens its defences. Energy is restored, preparing the body for the challenges of the coming day. After this deep immersion, the brain begins to climb upward again through lighter non-REM stages until it enters something very different. Suddenly the cortex becomes active, almost as if it were awake. Breathing grows irregular, heart rate increases slightly, and beneath the closed eyelids the eyes dart rapidly back and forth. This is REM sleep, a stage that feels paradoxical because the brain is buzzing with energy while the body is held still by a natural paralysis. This stillness is protective, preventing you from moving with your dreams while inside your head the most vivid and sometimes bizarre mental activity of the night takes place. In REM, emotions, memories, and fragments of daily experience are woven together into stories that can feel deeply real, even when they make little logical sense. It is here that you may fly, revisit old places, meet faces from the past, or experience scenes that could never occur in waking life. Early in the night, REM stages are short, lasting only a few minutes, while non-REM, especially slow-wave sleep, takes up most of the cycle. But as the hours pass, the balance shifts. Deep sleep grows shorter, while REM stretches longer, until by morning, your final cycles are filled with extended periods of dreaming. This design ensures that the body's needs for repair are met first, and then the mind's needs for memory, learning, and emotional balance are met later. It is a rhythm shaped by evolution, present in humans and animals alike, finely tuned to support life. Each cycle may feel invisible as you pass through it, but together they are the architecture of sleep, a structure built from alternating silence and activity, stillness and story. Without the deep foundations of non-REM, the body would weaken. Without the vivid bursts of REM, the mind would lose clarity. Both are essential, two halves of the same pattern, repeating through the night until the sky begins to lighten. This repeating cycle is the hidden framework of sleep, a quiet architecture that supports every dream, every restoration, and every breath you take while you lie resting. Even as you move deeper into this architecture of sleep, it is important to understand that the brain never truly shuts down. While the body becomes still and quiet, the mind continues its work, not in the fast and busy way it does during the day, but in a softer, more measured rhythm. Imagine a theatre at night. The bright stage lights that illuminated the day's performance are now dimmed. The noise of the crowd has faded, and the curtains have been drawn. Yet behind the scenes, the staff are still moving quietly, adjusting the set, cleaning the aisles, and preparing for tomorrow's play. This is what the brain does during non-REM sleep. It dims the spotlight of conscious thought, yet deep within, the actors of memory, attention, and emotion are still shuffling into place, rehearsing quietly in the dark. Neurons, the cells that make up the brain, never stop firing. Even in the deepest stages of slow-wave sleep, they send electrical signals back and forth, though in patterns that are slower and more synchronized than in waking life. These pulses move in great waves across the cortex, as if the entire orchestra of the mind were breathing in unison. Instead of a chaotic crowd of voices, there is a steady chorus, calm and methodical, each part knowing its role. This coordinated activity allows the brain to do tasks that are impossible while awake. It sorts through the vast collection of experiences from the day, deciding which details to keep and which to let fade. Imagine a librarian working late into the night, filing some books onto the shelves, discarding others, and carefully repairing those that will be needed tomorrow. The brain performs this silent labour continuously, protecting what is important and making space for what is new. In lighter stages of sleep, bursts of activity known as sleep spindles flicker like sparks across the cortex. These spindles are thought to protect the sleeper from waking, insulating the mind from sudden noises or disturbances, while also helping to strengthen connections between neurons. They are like small lanterns glowing briefly in the darkness, ensuring that certain paths are lit and reinforced. Meanwhile, deeper inside the brain, regions such as the hippocampus replay fragments of the day's experiences, sending them upward to the cortex where they are woven into long-term memory. This replay is subtle and hidden, yet it is essential, for without it the thread of learning and continuity would fray. Even though you are unaware of this process, the brain is carefully curating the story of your life each night. It is this silent work that allows you to wake up not only refreshed, but also a little wiser, carrying forward what you have learned and felt. The theatre is dim, the audience is gone, but the work continues. This is why sleep is never wasted time, but rather one of the most active and creative states the brain can enter, only hidden from your waking awareness. And as the cycles repeat, and the theatre of the mind grows quieter still, another shift will come, when the dim lights brighten once again, and the brain creates the strange, vivid performances we know as dreams, each one built upon the silent labour of these darker hours. And yet, even before the deep cycles of non-REM and the vivid plays of REM unfold, there is a fragile threshold that the mind must cross, a narrow passageway between waking and sleeping that carries its own strange wonders. This is the hypnagogic state, often called the hypnagogic bridge, and it is here, in this borderland, that the first faint images and sensations begin to drift across your awareness as you let go of the day. Unlike the fully structured dreams of REM, hypnagogic experiences are fleeting, fragmentary, and often illogical, yet they carry a curious weight, a feeling of being both real and unreal at the same time. You may see shapes that shimmer for a moment and then vanish, faces you do not recognize, or places that feel familiar though you have never visited them. Sometimes the mind conjures brief flashes of sound, a voice calling your name, a note of music, or the distant murmur of a crowd. Other times there is the sensation of movement, as if you are falling, floating, or swaying gently in the dark. These are not dreams in the full sense, but they are the mind's first steps into the world of sleep, images painted by neurons that are still half tied to waking patterns, yet beginning to loosen their grip. Scientists believe this strange state comes from the gradual transition in brain waves, as the fast beta rhythms of wakefulness shift into the slower alpha and then theta waves of early sleep. The brain is still processing sensory input, still half listening to the outside world, but at the same time, internal imagery begins to emerge. In this way, the hypnagogic bridge is like a double exposure on a film, where one picture fades into another, and the overlap creates ghostly patterns. Some people experience hypnagogia almost every night, while others rarely notice it, but it is a universal feature of human sleep. Writers, musicians, and scientists have often found inspiration here, capturing ideas that surfaced in those drifting moments before true sleep claimed them. Thomas Edison is said to have used this state intentionally, holding a metal ball in his hand while resting in a chair. As he slipped towards sleep, the ball would fall and wake him, and he would record the unusual thoughts or images that arose. In a quieter way, you may have experienced the same, falling into a nap and seeing a quick burst of imagery, a half-formed idea, or the sense of being somewhere else entirely, before snapping back awake. These fleeting visions remind us that the boundary between waking and sleeping is not sharp, but porous and shifting. The hypnagogic bridge is also where hypnic jerks occur, those sudden jolts of the body that can startle you as you drift off. They may come with a sensation of falling, as if your body's letting go too quickly, and your muscles respond with a reflexive kick to catch yourself. Though harmless, these moments can be surprisingly vivid, leaving you with the memory of a fall that never happened. All of this belongs to the fragile twilight zone of consciousness, where imagination and physiology intertwine. As you cross this bridge, the theatre lights of waking dim further, and the first silent rehearsals for the night's performance begin. Soon, the mind will commit fully, stepping into the layered cycles of non-REM and eventually the bright bursts of REM. But here, in this narrow passage, you can glimpse the first sketches of the dream world, brief and fragile as smoke. guiding you deeper into the night. As the night deepens and the cycles of non-REM carry you downward and back again, there comes a shift that feels almost like a paradox, a sudden ignition after so much silence, as though the dimmed theatre of the brain has decided to light its stage once more. This is the beginning of REM sleep, the mysterious state marked by rapid eye movements that dart beneath closed eyelids, giving this stage its name. To an outside observer, your body appears calm, your muscles slack, your breathing slightly quicker, but beneath the still surface the mind is alive with energy. Brain activity during REM looks startlingly similar to that of wakefulness. The cortex, which governs thought, imagery and perception, is buzzing with electrical signals, patterns that resemble those of a fully awake brain, and yet you're not conscious in the usual sense. You're immersed in a world created entirely within, a theatre of dreams that springs forth with such vividness it can rival reality. Scientists once found this paradox so striking that they called REM paradoxical sleep, because the brain seems wide awake even while the body is deeply at rest. The eyes flick back and forth as though following scenes on an unseen screen. The heart rate rises slightly, breathing grows more irregular, and temperature control weakens, showing how distinct this stage is from the steady rhythms of non-REM. Most remarkable of all is the natural paralysis that grips the major muscles during REM. Without this, the body might attempt to act out dreams, running, speaking, or striking as the mind imagines. Instead, a protective system in the brainstem sends signals that inhibit movement, leaving only small twitches of fingers, toes, or facial muscles. This paralysis can feel unsettling when you think about it, yet it is what allows the mind to wander so freely while the body remains safe. Within REM, the emotional centres of the brain, such as the amygdala, flare with activity. Memories from the hippocampus are replayed and reshaped, stitched into scenes that carry both logic and nonsense. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational decision-making, is quieter, which may explain why dreams feel so fluid, why impossible events seem natural, and why time itself can stretch or compress. A single moment can hold the weight of hours, while hours may vanish in an instant. The purpose of REM has been debated for decades. Some scientists believe it is essential for learning, for consolidating the day's experiences into lasting memory. Others argue that it helps regulate emotions, replaying stressful events in safe conditions, softening their sharpness by placing them into symbolic form. There are theories that REM acts as a rehearsal space, allowing the brain to test responses to danger, practice social situations, or explore creative connections. Whatever its exact function, REM is universal, appearing in all mammals and many birds, suggesting it serves something fundamental to survival. What makes REM even more intriguing is how it changes through the night. In the first sleep cycle, REM may last only a few minutes, a brief spark before fading back into non-REM. But as the hours pass, each return to REM grows longer, until by morning it may last 40 minutes or more, filling the final stretch of sleep with long, elaborate dreams. This gradual extension creates a balance. First, the body is given time to heal through deep non-REM, then the mind is given space to wander and reorganize through REM. Without either half, the architecture would collapse. The mystery remains that in REM the brain creates entire worlds, vivid enough to move us, frighten us, comfort us, or leave us pondering their meaning upon waking. And all of it happens while the body lies still, silent and unaware. It is a nightly paradox, a performance without an audience, a fire that burns brightly in the darkness of the skull. From the quiet descent of non-REM into the vivid ignition of REM, sleep reveals itself as not just a period of rest, but a complex dance, alternating between silence and story, until the mind itself becomes both stage and actor. As the cycles carry you into the heart of REM, the stage of the dream is fully set, and here the brain reveals one of its most curious tricks. For while the body is stilled by protective paralysis, whole regions of the mind are glowing with activity, as if different departments of a city have come alive while the rest remains quiet. The visual areas at the back of the brain, known as the occipital lobes, light up as though you were seeing real images, painting the landscapes, faces, and movements that populate your dreams. The limbic system, which governs emotion, memory, and instinct, becomes especially active. The amygdala, the small almond-shaped structure that processes fear and strong feeling, fires more intensely in REM than during waking life, which is why dreams are often saturated with powerful emotions, terror, joy, sorrow, wonder, that can feel overwhelming even when the events themselves are nonsensical. Nearby, the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure responsible for memory, replays fragments of the day, blending them with older experiences. This is why dreams often borrow details from your life. Someone you spoke to in the morning, a street you walked years ago, a sound you barely noticed, stirred together into a scene that makes no logical sense, but feels strangely personal. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain that weighs decisions and applies logic, is subdued. Its quietness explains why impossible things are accepted in dreams without question. You might find yourself walking through a city floating on water, or speaking to someone who has long since passed, and your dreaming mind does not resist. In the absence of strong rational control, emotions and imagery flow freely, unfiltered, producing stories that can be as wild as they are meaningful. Scientists sometimes describe REM as a state where the brain's theatre is playing without a director. The actors, memories, feelings, images are free to improvise, while the spotlight shifts suddenly from one to another, creating a narrative that feels coherent in the moment but drifts apart upon waking. And yet, it is not random. When researchers look closely, they see that emotional experiences are often replayed, sometimes softened, sometimes exaggerated, as though the brain were trying to rehearse or reframe them. In this sense, dreams can be like a rehearsal stage, a place where the mind takes the material of daily life and tests it in new arrangements, searching for meaning, comfort, or simply balance. Another remarkable aspect is the intensity of sensory experience in dreams. Though your eyes are closed and ears hear nothing, the brain simulates sight, sound, and even touch with astonishing vividness. The visual cortex produces images so strong that you can recall their colours and shapes upon waking. The auditory areas create voices, music, or noises that seem to come from outside, though they are born entirely within. Sometimes even the senses of taste and smell are engaged, though more faintly. All of this is constructed not from external input, but from the internal networks of the brain weaving together fragments of memory and imagination. The stage of the dream is therefore both a playground and a workshop. It is a place where memories are not merely stored, but reshaped, where emotions are not only felt, but processed, and where the self rehearses scenarios that might one day matter. Each night this stage is built again, the lights turned on in regions of the brain that daytime logic keeps restrained, and the actors of memory and feeling perform their strange improvisations. You may not remember every act, but the performance leaves traces nonetheless, influencing mood, creativity, and resilience in the waking day. The theatre of REM is not meaningless chaos. It is the brain at work in a different mode, producing narratives that, though fragmented, carry a kind of hidden purpose. And as the cycles of sleep continue, this stage will be revisited again and again, each time producing new variations, new plays, and new sensations, until the night itself feels like an endless series of performances stitched together in silence. On the stage of the dream, the actors that appear are not strangers brought from outside, but fragments of yourself, pieces of memory and feeling drawn from the endless storehouse of your mind, and though they may be reshaped or disguised, they are familiar at their core. During the day you gather countless impressions, conversations you hold, faces you pass, rooms you enter, sounds that echo faintly in the background, even thoughts so brief you hardly notice them. And when night comes, these fragments do not vanish. They wait quietly, stored within the networks of your brain. In waking life, the prefrontal cortex filters and organizes, deciding what deserves attention. But during REM, the control of that rational gatekeeper is quieted, and the fragments rise freely, stepping forward to play their roles. A person you met once in childhood may suddenly appear beside a colleague from today, and the two may talk as if they had known each other all along. A classroom from years ago might be layered over a place you only glimpsed in a film, blending into a setting that exists nowhere in reality but feels convincing nonetheless. The hippocampus, the small structure that encodes and replays memory, is central in this process, replaying details that are then passed upward into the cortex where they are mixed with older traces. Dreams rarely replay life in exact form. Instead, they shuffle, rearrange and improvise as though the mind were stitching together a quilt from scraps of fabric gathered across the years. Alongside memory, feeling plays an equally important role. The amygdala, responsible for processing emotion, becomes more active in REM than in waking hours, amplifying fear, joy, sadness and longing, painting every scene with heightened intensity. It is why a dream that makes little logical sense can still leave you shaken, or why a fleeting image can fill you with wonder even after waking. Sometimes the emotional weight is so strong that it overshadows the details entirely, leaving you with nothing but a mood that lingers through the morning even when the images dissolve. In this sense, feelings are not just actors but the lighting of the stage, colouring the entire performance. Dreams can therefore act as rehearsals for the emotional life you carry. A stressful conversation you avoided in the day may replay in symbolic form, giving your mind a chance to explore what it could not face directly. A joy you experienced may reappear exaggerated, letting you savour it once more. Unacknowledged emotions, ones you may have pushed aside without noticing, can also rise to the surface here, given voice by the brain when conscious thought is absent. In this way, the stage of dreams allows feelings that might remain hidden in daylight to be processed safely in darkness. The actors themselves are never fixed. A memory may appear first as it happened, but in later dreams it may take on a new form, altered by the emotions attached to it. Someone from your past may return again and again, each time playing a different role, sometimes comforting, sometimes unsettling, sometimes simply present in the background. These recurring appearances show how the mind continues to work on certain experiences, reshaping them until they lose their sharpness, or until they fit into the broader story of who you are. Even places and objects can act as characters in this performance. A familiar street may serve as a stage for fear, an old home may return as a setting for comfort. A book or a piece of music may weave itself into the backdrop of a dream, carrying meaning beyond its ordinary form. All of these fragments are chosen and arranged without conscious decision, yet not without purpose. The brain is improvising, but it is improvising with intent, using memories and emotions as raw material to practice, to soften, to reinforce. Recurring dreams are the clearest sign of this process, as if the mind has chosen certain actors and keeps bringing them back until their work is complete. Though you may forget most dreams upon waking, the influence of these nightly performances endures. They help to stabilize mood, to strengthen memories, and to create connections between thoughts that may never have linked together in daylight. The actors of memory and feeling are therefore not entertainment, but essential workers, performing unseen labour that shapes your waking self. Each night they step onto the dream stage, drawn from the archives of your own life, clothed in fragments of past and present, guided not by logic, but by emotion, and they play their parts in silence until the curtain falls with morning. And while the stage of dreams is filled with actors drawn from memory and emotion, there must also be something like a director, a guiding hand that signals when scenes should shift, when images should brighten, and when feelings should surge or fade, and in the theatre of the brain that role belongs largely to the brainstem. This ancient structure, nestled low at the base of the skull, is one of the most primitive parts of the nervous system, and yet it holds extraordinary influence over sleep and dreaming. From here, signals are sent upward that determine when REM begins, how long it lasts, and when it gives way to the deeper silences of non-REM. It is the brainstem that triggers the paralysis of major muscles during REM, ensuring that the vivid stories of the mind remain contained safely within. Without this control, the body might act out its nightly scripts, moving with every imagined run or shout. But thanks to the brainstem's careful regulation, the body lies still while the mind roams freely. The pons, a key part of the brainstem, generates bursts of activity that sweep upward into the cortex, sparking the visual imagery and sensory richness of dreams. These bursts are irregular, scattered like sudden cues from an unseen conductor, and the cortex responds by weaving them into shapes, faces, and places. In this way, the brainstem sets the rhythm, while higher areas of the brain interpret the signals as narrative. It does not write the script, but it dictates the tempo, deciding when the lights rise, when the scenery changes, and when the curtain must fall. The thalamus, working closely with the brainstem, acts as a gatekeeper, relaying sensory signals into the cortex, even while blocking most input from the outside world. This keeps the dream world immersive, shutting out reality so that the images feel complete. Meanwhile, the brainstem influences breathing, heart rate, and eye movement during REM, creating the physiological background against which dreams unfold. The rapid movements of the eyes are thought to mirror the scanning of dream imagery, though whether they match the exact content is still uncertain. What is clear is that without the brainstem's orchestration, dreams would not have their flowing, ever-changing quality. They might remain disjointed fragments, never coalescing into stories. Researchers studying animals have shown that when the brainstem is damaged, the cycle of REM is disrupted, and dreams lose their vividness or vanish altogether. This underlines how deeply the dream experience depends on the silent signals rising from this small, ancient region. You can think of the brainstem as the stage manager who controls the lights and sound, unseen by the audience yet essential for every performance. It times the entrance of REM, sustains it for the right duration, and then gently ushers the brain back into non-REM. Across the night, this alternation happens with precision, as though guided by an internal clock that has been running since the dawn of animal life. The actors of memory and emotion may improvise, but the director in the brainstem ensures that the play follows a rhythm, a pattern that gives dreams their fluid, shifting nature. And so as you lie still, the director continues its work, cueing each act of the night's performance, blending silence with story, until morning approaches and the final curtain is drawn. And with the brainstem guiding the rhythm and the actors of memory and emotion filling the stage, something curious begins to happen. For the dream does not follow a script written in advance, yet it unfolds as though it had one, shifting seamlessly from scene to scene without pause. And this is why dreams so often feel both random and deeply meaningful at the same time. The brain is not reciting lines. It is improvising in the moment, using fragments of memory, sparks of feeling, and bursts of neural activity to spin a story that did not exist before. The cortex, especially the visual and emotional regions, responds to scattered cues from the brainstem by creating images, sounds, and sensations, and then stitches them together into a flowing narrative. It is as though someone were handing you puzzle pieces from 1,000 different sets, and your mind, unable to stop itself, tries to assemble them into a single picture. Sometimes the pieces fit neatly, creating a dream that feels logical, almost like waking reality. Other times they clash, producing bizarre juxtapositions. A loved one speaking in the voice of a stranger, a familiar street floating above the ocean, a simple task turning into an endless maze. Yet even when the pieces are mismatched, the brain smooths the edges, giving a sense of continuity that feels convincing until the moment you awaken. This is why dreams rarely feel meaningless while you're in them. Only afterward do their oddities reveal themselves. The reduced activity of the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, plays a key role here. With logic subdued, the improvisation flows unchecked. You accept impossible events without question, because the skeptical voice that would normally interrupt is quiet. At the same time, the emotional intensity supplied by the amygdala convinces you that what you're experiencing matters. A dream may place you in a setting that makes no sense, but if the emotion is strong, fear, joy, longing, you believe the story as if it were real. This duality explains why dreams can feel chaotic in content yet profound in impact. The hippocampus adds another layer by replaying fragments of real memory, scattering them across the dream narrative. These pieces are often stripped of their original context, appearing in strange places or beside unrelated details, yet their presence gives the dream a feeling of truth. You recognize a face, a street, or an object, and this recognition anchors the dream, allowing the invented story to feel meaningful even when it is nonsense. In a way, dreams are the brain's attempt to impose order on randomness, to find coherence in scattered signals. It is the same tendency that makes humans see shapes in clouds or hear patterns in noise. The mind is always searching for story, and in REM sleep, with fragments flying freely, it becomes a master of spontaneous creation. Some scientists argue that this process itself has value, that by weaving randomness into narrative, the brain practices its ability to find meaning, an ability that is essential for survival in waking life. Others believe that the very randomness is useful, helping the mind explore connections it would never make under the strict control of logic. This might explain why dreams sometimes bring flashes of creativity, solutions to problems, or artistic inspiration. The randomness provides raw material, and the search for meaning shapes it into something coherent. And so the dream script writes itself every night, unplanned yet strangely purposeful. You're both audience and actor, caught in a play that unfolds moment by moment, without rehearsal and without repeat. When you wake, you may recall fragments, sometimes absurd, sometimes profound, sometimes lingering all day as though they carried a secret message. Whether or not dreams hold meaning in the mystical sense, they are meaningful in their effect. They allow you to feel, to rehearse, to imagine, to reorganize the raw material of your life. The script is never written twice in the same way, and yet it always feels as if it belongs to you. This paradox, that something born of randomness can carry such weight, lies at the heart of dreaming, and it is what makes each night's journey both mysterious and deeply human. And if the dream feels so gripping, if it sweeps you into scenes that shake you, delight you, or stay with you long after waking, much of that intensity comes from the small but powerful structure buried deep in the brain called the amygdala, an almond-shaped cluster that has always been the sentinel of emotion. In waking life, the amygdala is the alarm bell, quick to notice threat, quick to surge with fear, quick also to colour memories with joy or sorrow so they will not be forgotten. Normally its voice is balanced by the prefrontal cortex, the region that reasons and calms, reminding you that the dark figure is only a tree's shadow, or that the sudden noise is nothing more than a door closing. But in REM sleep that rational partner grows quiet, and the amygdala speaks more loudly, flooding the dream with pure feeling. This is why in dreams emotions can be so raw, so immediate, so exaggerated. A glance can terrify you, a smile can warm you to the core, a single misstep can feel like catastrophe. Fear, love, grief, and wonder do not whisper in dreams, they roar, and even when the story itself makes no sense, the feelings feel realer than real. Brain scans show that the amygdala's activity during REM exceeds its daytime levels, glowing brightly in the midst of the sleeping brain, and this heightened state explains why dream events can carry such force. In daylight you might shrug off a small embarrassment, but in a dream that same embarrassment can swell into a nightmare of exposure, because without the moderating voice of logic, the amygdala magnifies every signal. Yet this amplification is not without purpose. The amygdala is also a teacher. By intensifying feelings, it ensures that certain memories and lessons are stamped more deeply into your mind. A fearful dream can help you rehearse danger, giving your nervous system practice for threats you may one day face. A joyful dream can strengthen bonds, replaying moments of connection and imprinting them with emotional richness. The amygdala marks certain experiences as significant, handing them to the hippocampus for storage, so that when you wake, you carry not only the memory, but the weight of the feeling attached to it. This is why some dreams linger, not as clear images but as moods that haunt or uplift you throughout the day. Even if the story dissolves, the amygdala's work remains in your body, in your emotions, in the subtle tilt of your morning. Dreams filled with dread may leave you cautious, alert, watchful. Dreams filled with love may leave you softer, open, and calm. The amygdala, by amplifying, is shaping your emotional state in waking life. It is also thought that the amygdala's nightly rehearsal of fear has roots in survival. For our ancestors, those who practiced threats in safe dreamscapes may have been better prepared to escape real danger when it appeared. The brain does not distinguish fully between imagined fear and real fear. The nervous system responds to both with a similar cascade of signals, and so, a dream of being chased across dark woods might train the body to respond faster when a rustle in the real forest signals a predator. The amplification of emotion in dreams is thus not a flaw, but a deeply woven function of life. But the amygdala does not only rehearse fear, it also amplifies longing, sadness, and joy, giving the heart space to process what the waking day may have left unfinished. When grief is too heavy to face, it can surface in dreams as a flood, allowing the mind to wade through sorrow without distraction. When happiness is fragile, it can bloom again in sleep, amplified into radiant joy, reminding you of its presence even if the waking world has clouded it. The stage of dreams is painted by memory and feeling, but the amygdala is the painter's hand, saturating every scene with colour. Without it, dreams would be pale, hollow sketches. With it, they become vivid experiences that move you, frighten you, comfort you, and prepare you. and so when you wake with your heart racing from a nightmare, or smiling from a tender dream, remember that this amplifier has been at work, not only heightening feeling but etching lessons and bonds into the structure of your mind. In the theatre of REM, the amygdala is the amplifier of emotion, the great lantern that brightens every shadow and every joy, ensuring that each night leaves its mark upon the day to come. And as the amygdala heightens feelings and floods the dream with intensity, the purpose of this emotional surge begins to show itself. For one of the quietest but most profound functions of dreaming is its role as therapy, a nightly workshop where the brain takes the stresses of the day, the fears you carry, and the sorrows that weigh you down, and gently reshapes them into something lighter, something easier to hold. Scientists have observed that after difficult or stressful days, dreams often incorporate the themes of worry or conflict, not always in direct form, but in symbolic versions that echo the core feeling. You may not dream of the exact argument you had, but you may dream of being trapped, of running late, of being chased, all of which carry the same emotional weight. The amygdala ensures that the stress is felt vividly, but the dreaming brain does not simply replay the feeling. It processes it, takes it apart, recombines it, and tries to place it within the wider story of your memory. This is why nightmares, unpleasant as they are, may serve an important purpose. They act like rehearsals, giving you a chance to face fear in a safe environment, allowing the nervous system to practice its responses without real danger. In waking life, the stress hormone norepinephrine surges during moments of threat, sharpening attention, but also carving the memory deeply, sometimes too deeply. In REM sleep, however, norepinephrine levels are low, creating a unique state where the brain can replay emotional events without triggering the same stress response. It is as if the mind is saying, "Let us revisit this pain, but let us do so gently, without the sting." This lowering of stress chemistry allows the dream to serve as a kind of overnight therapy session, replaying events but softening their edges, weaving them into memory in ways that reduce their power to harm. The prefrontal cortex, though quieter in REM, still provides just enough structure to contextualize feelings, helping you place them in narrative form, while the hippocampus organizes them into memory. Together, this process means that when you wake, the event may still matter, but it feels less raw, less sharp. Studies have found that people deprived of REM sleep struggle more with emotional regulation, becoming quicker to anger, slower to calm. Conversely, after a full night of cycles, people often find that what seemed unbearable the night before has softened, as though the dream had carried some of the weight away. This is the therapeutic power of sleep, hidden from view, but felt in the subtle difference between despair and resilience. Dreams are not always soothing. Sometimes they are turbulent, frightening, even exhausting. But even then, they may be doing their work. By letting you encounter fear symbolically, by letting you feel sorrow in a space removed from the waking world, they allow you to process safely what might overwhelm you in daylight. It is no accident that people who experience trauma often dream intensely afterward. Their minds are trying again and again to integrate what has happened, even if the process is painful. Over time, if given enough nights of uninterrupted REM, the emotional charge may lessen, the memory woven into the larger tapestry of life rather than left as a raw wound. In this way, sleep becomes the mind's natural therapy, a session held every night without request, with the brain itself as both patient and healer. The gentle repetition of cycles gives multiple opportunities for this work, first focusing on bodily repair in the early hours, then turning increasingly toward emotional repair in the later hours as REM dominates. This is why the final hours of sleep are often the most dream-filled, and for mental health, the most crucial. To cut them short is to deny yourself the therapy your brain is prepared to give. Dreams may not solve every problem, but they help you carry them, making the load a little lighter, the feelings a little softer, the day ahead a little easier to face. In this sense, each night is a quiet form of healing, hidden behind closed eyes, where the mind takes what is heavy and tries to reshape it into something you can live with. And when you rise, though you may not remember the scenes, you carry the gift of that therapy within you. And as dreams serve their role in easing stress and softening the edges of pain, they also reveal another remarkable function, one that has less to do with healing the past and more to do with preparing for the future, because the dream world is not only a place of therapy but also a rehearsal space, a nightly stage where the brain practices responses to dangers, puzzles through challenges, and even rehearses the delicate steps of social life. Researchers have long noticed that many dreams involve threats, being chased, lost, or confronted, scenarios that rarely happen in waking life with such frequency, yet dominate the landscape of dreams. One theory, called the threat simulation hypothesis, suggests that this is no accident. In our evolutionary past, survival often depended on responding quickly to danger, and the brain may have developed REM as a virtual reality simulator, giving us a safe arena to practice escapes, confrontations, and survival strategies. When you dream of running from a faceless pursuer, climbing away from a flood, or navigating an endless maze, you may be rehearsing instincts that once meant life or death for your ancestors. Even though the threat is imagined, the nervous system responds with accelerated heart rate, quickened breath, and heightened vigilance, training your body to respond with speed and coordination should such danger appear in reality. But rehearsal in dreams is not limited to threats. Social life, with its subtle cues and complex rules, also demands practice, and dreams often provide it. You may find yourself speaking to people you rarely meet, arguing with those you know, or navigating gatherings filled with unfamiliar faces. The amygdala's amplification of emotion ensures that these encounters feel significant, and the hippocampus supplies characters and settings drawn from memory, mixing them into scenarios that test how you respond. These rehearsals may help you refine empathy, strengthen bonds, or prepare for conflict, even if you never recall the details upon waking. The brain is, in effect, running simulations of possible futures, letting you try different responses without consequence. Sometimes these rehearsals take on creative forms, presenting you with puzzles or strange tasks. You may need to find your way out of a labyrinth, repair something broken, or solve a problem that makes no sense in waking logic, but still exercises your mind's flexibility. These scenarios may enhance problem-solving skills by training the brain to think in unusual ways, to link fragments of memory into new patterns. Even dreams that feel chaotic may be rehearsing adaptability, reminding your mind and body how to remain alert in unpredictable situations. What makes this rehearsal valuable is that it is embodied. The dream does not simply show you images, it makes you feel them. You do not watch yourself being chased. You run, your muscles tense, your heart pounds. You do not observe a conversation. You speak, you listen, you feel the awkwardness or the joy. The nervous system participates fully, and this embodied simulation strengthens the circuits that would be used in waking life. In this sense, every night provides a kind of training session, one that sharpens instinct, tunes emotion, and refines behaviour without any of the risks that reality carries. And just as the stage of therapy softens the burdens of yesterday, the stage of rehearsal prepares you for tomorrow, making dreams not only echoes of what has been, but also previews of what may come. The brain does this without your asking, without your awareness, quietly ensuring that when life presents its dangers or its complexities, you are a little more ready, because you have practiced in silence. behind closed eyes, in the theatre of the night. And as dreams serve as both therapy and rehearsal, easing the weight of yesterday and preparing you for tomorrow, they also perform another task so essential that without it your very sense of self would begin to fray. For dreams are part of the brain's way of sorting memory, shifting fragile impressions from short-term storage into the stronger architecture of long-term recall. During the day, every moment of experience floods into your mind, but not every detail can be kept. Some are stored only briefly in the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure that acts like a temporary notebook, holding new events for hours or days. If nothing more happens, many of these memories fade. But during sleep, and especially during REM, the hippocampus begins to replay selected fragments, sending them back up into the cortex, where they are woven into networks of long-term memory. It is as though the hippocampus is a messenger delivering parcels to the library of the brain, deciding which books should be archived on the shelves and which scraps can be discarded. This process is not mechanical. It is shaped by feeling. The amygdala's amplification of emotion ensures that experiences carrying joy, fear, or sorrow are more likely to be replayed, marked as important to keep. Meanwhile, neutral details are often allowed to slip away, making space for what truly matters. Dreams are the visible part of this sorting process. When you dream of places you visited, conversations you had, or even trivial sights from the day, it is because those fragments are being replayed and considered for storage. The dream may alter them, combining them with older memories, or embedding them in strange stories, but the underlying task is clear: to move the fragile into the durable, to make the temporary lasting. Studies with students show that after learning new information, REM-rich sleep improves recall, while deprivation of REM leaves memory weaker. In this sense, every night is a rehearsal not just of danger or social life, but of the very act of remembering, a practice of taking the fragile threads of today and weaving them into the durable fabric of tomorrow. And the brain does not simply store information, it reorganizes it. Memories are not filed away in isolation but integrated with existing knowledge, linked to what you already know, reshaped into patterns that make sense. This is why dreams often mix the new with the old. A recent lecture replayed in a childhood home, a conversation with someone alive taking place beside someone long gone. The hippocampus replays, the cortex integrates, and the dream reflects that blending. By morning, the memory is not exactly what it was, but something stronger, more connected, more useful. Without this nightly sorting, experiences would pile up chaotically, overwhelming the mind. People deprived of sleep often struggle not only with tiredness, but with confusion, forgetfulness, and poor judgment, signs of a brain that cannot keep its records in order. With proper sleep, and with dreams as its outward sign, the mind keeps its archive clean and its shelves orderly. Think of this memory work as a silent librarian moving through the stacks, carrying today's loose pages and carefully binding them into volumes, filing them among older books, and discarding the excess that would only clutter the shelves. You do not see this labour, but you live its results every day when you recall a lesson, recognize a face, or continue a skill you once learned. Dreams are the flicker of this process, glimpses of the sorting as it happens, symbols of the brain's nightly labour to preserve what matters. And so, as you sleep, your memories are being sifted, strengthened and stored, ensuring that when you wake, you carry more than you did before, carrying not only the weight of new knowledge, but also the comfort of knowing it is woven safely into who you are. And as the brain rehearses dangers and weaves memories into lasting form, another feature of the dream world becomes strikingly clear: the uncanny strangeness of it all. For dreams are rarely neat copies of waking life. They are distorted, fluid, unpredictable, and often surreal. And this peculiar texture arises because the balance of the dreaming brain is so different from the waking one. In waking hours, the prefrontal cortex, especially the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, plays a steadying role, applying logic, self-awareness, and critical thought to everything you perceive. It is this region that helps you plan, weigh decisions, and notice contradictions, reminding you that people cannot fly and that streets do not float above oceans. But in REM sleep, this rational overseer grows quiet, its activity subdued, leaving the stage to regions that care less about reason and more about feeling and imagery. The limbic system, home to the amygdala and hippocampus, grows brighter, flooding the dream with heightened emotion and fragments of memory. The visual cortex hums with activity, painting vivid images even though no light is entering your eyes. The auditory areas hum too, producing voices and sounds from silence. In this unusual balance, where logic is dimmed and emotion is loud, the dream acquires its strange quality. Scenes shift without warning. Characters merge into one another. Places transform as you walk through them, and you rarely question it, because the skeptical voice of the prefrontal cortex is muted. A hallway that turns into a forest does not surprise you, because the part of the brain that would raise an eyebrow is not speaking. Instead, the dream flows, unbroken, each change accepted as natural. Yet the heightened activity of emotional centers ensures that these illogical stories carry weight. A dream can be nonsensical in detail, but powerful in feeling, leaving you terrified, overjoyed, or deeply moved. This is why the strangest dreams often linger, because the emotional imprint is strong even when the narrative makes no sense. It is a paradox. The rational mind has stepped aside, but the emotional mind has stepped forward, and the result is a world where impossibility feels real. Some scientists describe this as a kind of creative mode for the brain, a state where connections are made freely without the restraint of logic, allowing for new associations that waking thought might never permit. Artists and inventors throughout history have spoken of solutions and ideas arising from dreams, precisely because this strange mode allows the brain to link elements it would normally keep apart. But this same looseness also explains why dreams feel bizarre. The narrative lacks consistency, the settings shift, the rules of physics are ignored, yet it all flows together under the steady hand of emotion. The dream is strange not because it is meaningless, but because it is driven by a different balance of forces than waking life, one where imagery and feeling lead while logic watches from the wings. This strangeness is not a flaw but part of the design, for it allows the brain to explore without constraint, to test emotions, to rehearse responses, to combine memories in ways that forge new patterns. The strangeness is what makes the dream, a world apart from waking reality, but deeply connected to the inner life of the mind. And so, when you wake and shake your head at the oddity of your dreams, remember that their strange nature is born from the quieting of logic and the loudness of feeling, a shift that allows the brain to wander its own corridors without walls, to play with the impossible, and to return with insights, emotions, and traces that shape the day ahead. And as we step back from the strangeness of dreams, from their shifting corridors and their emotional intensity, it becomes clear that dreaming is not something unique to you, or to me, or to any one time or place, but something shared by all humans across every culture and age, a universal experience woven into the very fabric of life. No matter where you are born, what language you speak, or what beliefs you hold, when night comes and sleep takes you, you dream. Ancient writings from Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, and Greece all describe dreams with awe, sometimes as messages from gods, sometimes as glimpses of the future, sometimes as reflections of the soul. In many cultures, dreams were sacred, a way for ancestors to speak, for deities to guide, for hidden truths to reveal themselves. Shamans and spiritual leaders were often dream interpreters, seeing in the symbols of the night visions the threads of meaning that could guide a community. In ancient Egypt, entire temples were dedicated to dream incubation, where people would sleep in sacred spaces hoping to receive healing dreams. The Greeks built similar sanctuaries, believing that the god Asclepius sent visions to cure illness. In indigenous traditions across the Americas, dreams were treated as powerful teachings, often discussed in the morning circle, shared with family and tribe to strengthen bonds and reveal lessons. Even today, cultures differ in how they view the dream world. In many Western societies, influenced by Freud and Jung, dreams are often seen as reflections of the unconscious mind, symbols of repressed desire or inner archetypes. In Eastern traditions, dreams can be viewed as signs of balance or imbalance, reflections of harmony with the natural and spiritual world. In some African cultures, dreams are communal, not private, seen as messages for the group rather than the individual. And in modern science, dreams are examined as biological processes, functions of memory, emotion, and neural rhythms. What unites all of these perspectives is not agreement on meaning, but the recognition that dreams matter. They are never dismissed as nothing. Across history and geography, they are treated as events worth noting, worth recording, worth telling at breakfast or writing in books. Every culture has its dream stories, from epic visions in holy texts to small fragments whispered between friends. Children everywhere dream of monsters, adults dream of worries, the elderly dream of the past, and in all of these dreams there is a thread of humanity that binds us. Even the themes of dreams show remarkable similarity across cultures. People everywhere dream of being chased, of falling, of flying, of losing teeth, of arriving unprepared, of being reunited with the dead. These recurring motifs suggest that beneath cultural differences, there are universal concerns, rooted in shared biology and shared emotion. The fear of pursuit, the desire for flight, the anxiety of loss, the longing for connection. These are not bound by language or nation. They are human. The meanings ascribed to them may differ, but the experiences themselves cross every border. Dreams also remind us of our shared vulnerability. No matter how powerful someone may be in waking life, in dreams they are subject to the same shifts and strangeness as anyone else. Kings and peasants, scientists and poets, all close their eyes and enter worlds beyond their control. Dreams democratize experience, making us all travellers in the same shifting landscape. In this way, dreaming is one of the deepest common grounds of humanity, a nightly reminder that beneath differences we are alike. And so, as you lie in your own bed, in your own time, carrying your own memories and worries, you participate in something as ancient and as widespread as life itself, stepping into a world that billions before you have entered and billions after you will enter still. Dreams are not only personal stories but shared ones, proof that we are connected by more than waking reality, connected by the silent journeys we all take when night falls. And while dreams connect all people across time and culture, carrying stories of hope, longing and wonder, they also carry shadows, for not every dream is gentle, not every dream comforts, and when dreams go dark they take the form of nightmares, visions that startle the heart, disturb the body, and leave you waking in fear. Yet even these troubling experiences have their place, and though they are unpleasant to endure, they may serve a protective role, guiding the mind through the rehearsal of danger and the processing of pain. Nightmares often occur when the amygdala is most active, flooding the dream with fear and amplifying even small threats into overwhelming terrors. You may find yourself chased by figures you cannot see, trapped in places you cannot escape, or confronted by disasters impossible in waking life. The logic of the dream is broken, but the emotion is powerful, so powerful that you may wake with your pulse racing, your breath fast, your muscles tense. At first glance, it may seem as if nightmares are simply the brain tormenting itself, but researchers suggest that they may actually be a form of training, a simulation of worst-case scenarios that teaches the nervous system how to react. By running through the experience of fear in a safe, imagined environment, the brain rehearses responses to real threats, sharpening the body's readiness without exposing it to actual harm. This idea is supported by the fact that nightmares often center on primal fears: pursuit, falling, loss, exposure. These are not random images, but echoes of situations that, for our ancestors, could mean danger to life or survival of the group. Even today, to dream of being hunted, trapped, or cast out touches something ancient within us, a system that once ensured that vigilance kept us alive. Beyond rehearsal, nightmares may also act as a form of emotional cleansing. Traumatic events replay themselves in dreams, often painfully, but with each repetition the memory can soften, the edges of terror dulling slightly as the brain tries again and again to integrate the event into the larger narrative of life. For those who've endured trauma, nightmares can feel like cruel reminders, yet they may also represent the mind's desperate attempt at healing, confronting what cannot be faced during the day. Over time, with enough cycles, the intensity may lessen, and the dream may finally transform, showing resolution, escape, or relief. Nightmares can also serve as signals, drawing attention to stresses or conflicts that waking thought has pushed aside. A recurring nightmare may be the brain's way of saying that something unresolved remains, that the emotional load is still too heavy to carry unnoticed. By dramatizing the burden in symbolic form, the nightmare forces awareness, even if only through fear. In this sense, nightmares are not enemies but messengers, unpleasant yet valuable. They demand attention to feelings that waking life would rather ignore. The protective role of nightmares can also be seen in their aftermath. Though they wake you shaken, they may leave you more cautious, more aware, more prepared. Children who dream of monsters learn to confront fear, practicing bravery in a place where no harm can truly come. Adults who dream of failure may approach real challenges with greater care, having already rehearsed the sting of loss. The nightmare is unpleasant in the moment, but it prepares you for reality, strengthening rather than weakening. And so, when dreams go dark, they are not a sign of weakness in the mind, but of its determination to prepare, to heal, to signal. They are the shadows cast by the same light that creates gentler dreams, reminders that fear and sorrow are part of life's landscape, and that even in sleep the brain does not abandon its duty to keep you ready. The next time you wake from a nightmare with your heart pounding, it may help to remember that the fear you felt was not meaningless. It was a rehearsal, a lesson, and perhaps even a step toward healing, guided by the strange wisdom of the dreaming brain. And yet, within the vast landscape of dreams where logic softens, feelings surge, and even nightmares carve their protective paths, there are rare moments when the dreamer becomes aware, when you realize in the middle of the unfolding story that you're not simply a passenger but a participant. And this is the phenomenon known as lucid dreaming. Most of the time, dreams sweep you along, and you accept every impossible twist without question. But in lucid dreams, something shifts. The prefrontal cortex, usually quiet during REM, flickers with activity just enough to give you awareness that this world is not waking reality. It can begin subtly, a recognition that something is off. Perhaps the sky is the wrong colour, or a familiar face looks strange. and instead of simply accepting it as natural, you pause, and in that pause awareness blooms. I am dreaming. This realization does not usually wake you, but it changes the dream itself, opening a new dimension where you can sometimes guide the narrative, influence events, or choose your actions. Some dreamers report soaring into the air, testing the limits of impossible flight. Others revisit places they long to see, or call forth people they miss. And while not every lucid dream grants full control, even partial awareness can be profound, a moment of clarity in the shifting theatre of REM. Scientists who study lucid dreaming find it fascinating because it shows that consciousness can exist in shades, not simply on or off, but layered, partial, flexible. The sleeper remains deeply in REM, muscles paralyzed, eyes darting beneath lids, yet parts of the brain associated with metacognition, thinking about thinking, switch on, giving the dreamer self-awareness inside the dream. This rare overlap between dreaming and wakefulness suggests that the boundary between the two states is more porous than it seems. For centuries, lucid dreaming was known mainly through personal accounts, with mystics and philosophers describing their ability to recognize the dream and shape it. Tibetan Buddhist traditions include practices designed to cultivate awareness in dreams, treating them as opportunities for spiritual training. In modern times, researchers have confirmed lucid dreaming scientifically, asking dreamers to perform prearranged signals with their eyes while asleep, proving that awareness can exist in real time within the dream state. The ability to enter lucidity varies from person to person. Some slip into it naturally, often during childhood, while others may never experience it without training. Techniques to increase lucid dreaming often involve reality checks in waking life, asking yourself repeatedly if you are dreaming so that the habit carries into sleep. Others use methods of waking briefly during the night and returning to sleep with focused intention. What is striking is that even without control, the awareness itself changes the tone of the dream. Fear may lessen when you realize the threat cannot harm you. Grief may soften when you recognize the presence of a lost loved one as a creation of your own mind. Curiosity may flourish when you decide to explore the dream world as though it were a landscape waiting to be discovered. Lucid dreams, though rare, remind us that the mind is not bound even in sleep. They show that consciousness is not a simple light switch, but a spectrum, capable of dimming and brightening in unexpected ways. And while most dreams flow without awareness, these lucid moments are like small lanterns in the darkness, brief but brilliant, offering a glimpse of how the dreaming brain can hold both story and self-awareness at once. They may last only seconds or stretch into what feels like hours, but their impact often lingers, leaving the dreamer with a sense of wonder at the mind's ability to awaken inside itself. And while lucid dreaming shows that awareness can bloom inside REM, there are other strange states at the very edges of sleep, moments that sit between waking and dreaming, neither one nor the other, and these are often called the borderlands of sleep. Here, consciousness is fragile, half tethered to the world outside and half immersed in the imagery within, and in this in-between place unusual experiences occur that can be both fascinating and frightening. One of the most well-known of these borderland states is sleep paralysis. In REM sleep, the body is paralyzed by design, held still by signals from the brainstem, so that you do not act out your dreams. But sometimes when you are waking or drifting into sleep, your awareness returns before this paralysis lifts, and you find yourself trapped in a body that will not move. You're awake enough to notice your surroundings, yet still immersed in dreamlike sensations, and the mixture can be unsettling. People describe the weight of a presence in the room, the sensation of being pressed down into the bed, or strange figures standing in the shadows. These visions are not outside intruders, but creations of the dreaming brain, slipping into waking awareness, hypnagogic, if they appear while falling asleep, and hypnopompic if they occur while waking. They often carry the mark of fear because the amygdala is still active, amplifying emotion, while the rational cortex is not fully online to calm the alarm. Across cultures, these experiences have been interpreted as spirits, demons, or visitors from beyond, and the similarity of the report suggests how deeply rooted this phenomenon is in human physiology. Sleep paralysis does not harm, though it can feel terrifying, and in time the paralysis fades as the brainstem releases its hold, the body regains movement, and waking fully returns. Another borderland experience comes in the form of vivid hallucinations just as sleep is beginning or ending. In these moments, called hypnagogic when entering sleep and hypnopompic when leaving it, images, sounds, and sensations intrude upon waking consciousness with startling clarity. You may see shapes floating across the room, hear voices calling your name, or feel the sensation of floating or falling. These are not signs of madness, but natural byproducts of the brain slipping between states, when dream imagery bleeds into waking perception. Artists and thinkers have sometimes courted these moments, finding in them sparks of creativity that daytime logic cannot reach. But for many they pass as brief, confusing episodes, forgotten soon after the transition into full sleep or wakefulness. The borderlands of sleep reveal how fluid the boundary between waking and dreaming truly is. We like to think of the two as separate, distinct, but the truth is that consciousness can slide back and forth, overlap, and combine in ways that produce experiences that feel otherworldly. Sleep paralysis shows us what happens when the paralysis of REM lingers while awareness returns. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic visions show us what happens when dream imagery persists while perception resumes. Both remind us that sleep and waking are not fixed islands, but shores separated by mist, where it is easy to drift one way or the other. To walk through these borderlands can be unsettling, but it is also a glimpse into how the brain builds reality itself, how fragile and flexible the sense of self and world can be. And while most nights these transitions pass unnoticed, on occasion they open into vivid episodes that remind you of the strange power of the mind as it moves between the dark theatre of dreams and the bright stage of waking life. And as we pass through the borderlands of sleep, from the paralysis that stills the body to the visions that spill across the threshold of waking, it becomes natural to wonder why such a theatre exists at all, why the brain evolved this elaborate nightly performance of images, emotions, and stories. For all the careful research on REM cycles, neural rhythms, and emotional processing, many questions remain unanswered, and dreaming continues to stand as one of the great mysteries of human existence. From a biological perspective, it seems clear that sleep itself is essential. Without it, the body falters, memory weakens, and the mind unravels. But why should this rest be filled with visions? Why should the brain construct worlds within worlds when it could simply turn off? One possibility is that dreams are accidental, the byproduct of random activity from the brainstem, with the cortex struggling to impose order on chaotic signals, creating stories because the mind is incapable of tolerating disorder. This view suggests that dreams do not serve a direct purpose. They are simply the brain's attempt to make sense of noise. Yet if this were the whole truth, it would not explain why REM sleep is so consistent across mammals and even appears in birds, or why its deprivation causes such damage to mood and memory. Another view is that dreams are deeply functional, evolved to rehearse survival skills, regulate emotions, and consolidate memories. This would explain their universality and their emotional intensity, but even here the details are debated. Why do dreams take such strange forms, so illogical and surreal? Why are they filled with symbols, distortions, and impossible events, if their role is to prepare us for waking life? Perhaps the strangeness itself is part of their value. By loosening the grip of logic, dreams allow the brain to explore associations it would never attempt by day, creating new connections, insights, and possibilities. They may serve as a playground for creativity, a place where the mind is free to wander without rules, and from this wandering may come solutions, inventions, and art. Still, no theory fully captures the richness of the phenomenon. Some neuroscientists argue that dreams are a kind of emotional homeostasis, balancing the psyche much as sleep balances the body. Others see them as evolutionary rehearsals, sharpening instincts. Some philosophers suggest they are essential to consciousness itself, showing the mind's ability to generate reality independent of external input. And still others admit that we may never know the full reason, that dreams may have multiple overlapping functions, too complex to reduce to a single explanation. What is certain is that dreams are not meaningless. They leave marks on mood, on memory, on creativity, and on the very sense of self. To wake shaken from a nightmare, to wake glowing from a joyful dream, is to know that the theatre of the night has power. Whether that power evolved as adaptation or emerged as byproduct, it shapes the waking life we live. The unanswered questions remain. Why do some people dream vividly while others rarely recall? Why do animals dream, their paws twitching as if chasing prey? Why do some dreams recur, circling the same themes? Why do some dreams feel more real than reality itself? The mystery persists, and perhaps it is this mystery that keeps dreams endlessly fascinating. They are a nightly reminder that we do not fully understand ourselves, that the brain carries secrets beyond its waking rationality, secrets that slip into view only when logic is quiet and emotion is loud. And so the question lingers, did evolution craft this theatre to serve us? Or is it simply the echo of neural machinery at work? Perhaps both are true, and perhaps the wonder of dreaming lies in the fact that even as science explains its mechanisms, the meaning remains open, an unanswered riddle that continues to glow in the darkness each time we close our eyes. And as we arrive at the end of this long journey through the hidden architecture of the night, from the quiet descent into non-REM, through the vivid stages of a REM where memory and emotion play out on their strange stage, through the shadows of nightmares, the rare clarity of lucidity, the borderlands of paralysis and vision, and into the unanswered mysteries of why we dream at all, it is time to step back and let the story soften into closing reflections. What you have heard is not a final explanation, because dreams resist being fully explained. They are too fluid, too personal, too deeply tied to the essence of being human. But in following their path across the night, you have seen how the brain carries you into silence, how it lights itself with activity when the body is still, how it takes fragments of memory, washes them in emotion, amplifies their meaning, and returns them to you in stories that can shake you, or comfort you, or vanish the moment you wake. In this way, dreams are both utterly private and utterly universal. Everyone dreams, even if they do not remember, and everyone participates in this ancient rhythm that evolution has carved into the brain. Every night is a quiet journey through cycles, each stage carrying out its hidden work, each dream stitching you more tightly to yourself and to the shared human experience of those who have dreamed before and those who will dream long after. To know this is to feel connected to a lineage that stretches back to the earliest creatures who closed their eyes and drifted into rhythms of rest. It is to feel that you are part of something larger, not just a person lying in a bed, but a traveller in a current that has always flowed through life. And as you rest tonight, perhaps you will carry a gentler relationship to your own dreams. When nightmares come, you may see them as rehearsals, protective acts of the brain. When joyful dreams bloom, you may allow yourself to savour them as gifts. When strange and nonsensical scenes unfold, you may smile at their creativity, knowing that the strangeness itself is part of their value. And when you remember nothing, you can still trust that the silent work was done, that memory was sorted, emotions softened, and your body renewed. Dreams need no witness to do their work. They do not require recall to shape you. They are labour carried out behind closed eyes, weaving the threads of your waking life into patterns you may never see but always carry. As we close this exploration, allow yourself to sink deeper into your own quiet rhythm. Feel your breath slow, your body heavy, your thoughts lighter, as if drifting toward your own stage where tonight's theatre will begin. There's nothing you need to control, nothing you need to demand. The director in your brainstem is already waiting, the actors of memory and feeling are already gathering, and the script will write itself without effort. All you need is to rest, to let go, to trust the ancient rhythm that carries every human into silence. Sleep is not absence but presence, not emptiness but fullness, a nightly gift where the mind restores itself. And now, with the story told, with the mysteries acknowledged but not solved, with the stage set once more, you may let your own theatre begin, drifting softly into the darkness, where images will rise, emotions will glow, and the night will carry you gently through its cycles. May you rest in the comfort of knowing that this is natural, that you are safe, and that in the quiet work of sleep you are being renewed. Let yourself drift now, slowly, steadily, into the world of dreams, carried by the lullaby of your own mind into the timeless journey that waits every night.